In this video, I'm going to analyze the pronunciation of a subscriber. The sequence of this video is going to be a little different from previous videos. I'm going to play you her recording first before telling you anything about her. I want you to listen very carefully to her recording and make your observations. Then I'll have you pause the video and write down your guesses about her background and experience with the Spanish language, your analysis of her pronunciation, and what numerical score you would give her. Then when you resume the video, you can compare your ideas with mine. Alright, let's listen to her recording.
Fue en este momento cuando ocurrió la primera cosa de todas, la cosa bastante rara que luego dio lugar a las otras cosas mucho más raras que le sucedieron, porque de pronto, justo a sus espaldas, Jaime oyó un movimiento de hojas y al volverse vio a un anciano vestido con un extraño traje de color verde oscuro, que salía de entre los arbustos. Era un hombre de pequeña estatura, pero tenía una enorme cabeza calva y la cara casi oculta tras unas pobladas patillas negras. Se paró a unos metros y se quedó mirando seriamente a Jaime, apoyando en su bastón. Cuando habló, su voz era lenta y chirriante. «Acércate a mí, pequeño», dijo, señalando a Jaime con el dedo. «Ven aquí y te enseñaré algo maravilloso». Jaime estaba demasiado asustado como para moverse. El anciano avanzó cojeando un par de pasos, y entonces metió una mano en el bolsillo de la chaqueta y sacó una bolsita de papel blanco. «¿Ves esto?», susurró, balanceando suavemente la bolsita ante los ojos de Jaime. «¿Sabes lo que es esto, hijo? ¿Sabes lo que hay dentro de esta bolsita?». Entonces se acercó otro poco, se inclinó hacia adelante y aproximó tanto su cara a la de Jaime, que éste pudo notar su respiración en las mejillas. La respiración del anciano olía a mojo viejo y aserrado, igual que el aire de una bodega subterránea. «Echa una mirada, hijo», dijo abriendo la bolsa y enseñándosela a Jaime. En su interior, Jaime vio un montón de cositas verdes que parecían piedrecitas o cristales, del tamaño de un grano de arroz. Eran increíblemente hermosas y tenían un extraño brillo, una especie de cualidad luminosa que las hacía destallar y relucir de una forma maravillosa. «Escúchalas», susurró el anciano. «Escucha cómo se mueven». Jaime miró en el interior de la bolsa y pudo comprobar que se notaba un débil murmullo, y también notó que aquellas miles de cositas verdes se movían lenta, muy lentamente, subiéndose unas encima de otras como si estuvieran vivas. «Hay más poder y magia en estas cositas de aquí que en todo el resto del mundo», dijo el anciano con voz suave. Pero ¿qué son?», murmuró Jaime, encontrando por fin su voz. «¿De dónde vienen?». «Ajá», susurró el anciano, «ni te lo imaginas». Se agachó un poco más y acercó la cara a la de Jaime, tanto que su nariz rozaba la frente de éste. De pronto dio un salto hacia atrás y empezó a blandir su bastón por encima de la cabeza. «Lenguas de cocodrilo», gritó. 1000 largas y viscosas lenguas de cocodrilo, cosidas en el cráneo de una bruja muerta, durante 20 días y 20 noches, con los ojos de un lagarto. Se añaden los dedos de un mono joven, el buche de un cerdo, el pico de un loro verde, el jugo de un puercoespín y 3 cucharadas de azúcar. Se cuece todo durante otra semana y se deja que la luna haga el resto». Sin más ceremonias, puso la blanca bolsita de papel en la mano de Jaime y dijo: «Ten, sujétala, es para ti». Les voy a contar de mi viaje favorito. Les quiero platicar que el lugar en sí no es la razón por la cual es mi lugar favorito, aunque sí es muy bello lugar. La razón por la cual es mi lugar favorito es por la experiencia y con las personas con las que fui. El año pasado, uno de mis tíos, que fue casi como mi papá por toda la vida, nos invitó a un viaje a San Carlos, Sonora. Siempre que él nos invitaba a un viaje, solíamos decirle que no, porque nos daba pena que pagara todo, porque así era él. Esta vez nos rogó mucho y decidimos a última hora ir. En este viaje viajamos a Hermosillo desde mi casa y de allí fuimos a la casa de mi tío y de ahí nos fuimos juntos a San Carlos. Llegamos a un condominio muy bonito y grande, tenía un balcón, playa privada, una alberca, era hermoso, tenía la vista más bonita que he visto en mi vida. alcanzabas a ver el ocaso, en fin, era un viaje muy bonito con un panorama hermoso. Ya que se acabó el viaje, nos regresamos a Hermosillo, nos despedimos de mi tío y le agradecimos por el viaje. De ahí nos vinimos a casa y después de eso, a pocos meses, mi tío falleció de coronavirus y fue algo muy feo en nuestra familia. Y ese viaje fue mi último recuerdo con él, por lo cual lo hace mi viaje favorito.
Okay, at this point, pause the video and make your guess about where she's from and her background in preparation with the Spanish language. Alright, this subscriber has requested to remain anonymous, but she's provided this information. She's 22 years old. She was born in a small town in Sonora, Mexico, about 2.5 hours south of the U.S.-Mexico border. At the age of 3, she came to the United States to a city about the same distance north of the U.S.-Mexico border. Some of her immediate and extended family have continued to live in her hometown in Mexico, and throughout her whole life she's gone back and forth between the two countries. And while she's mostly lived in the U.S., she's returned to Mexico as frequently as a couple times a month, and once even spent a whole school year there. Moreover, she's spoken exclusively Spanish in the home with her immediate and extended family here in the U.S., some of whom don't speak English. And she has a professional education in English and works in a technical field. So this young woman is extremely fluently bilingual, and it would be very difficult to pin down what her dominant language might be. She reports being dominant in Spanish in some contexts and dominant in English in others. And she says that school and work colleagues tell her she has no Spanish accent to her English. Truly an enviable degree of bilingualism. Any analysis of her pronunciation has to take two things into account. The first is that she probably speaks Spanish nearly indistinguishably from monolingual native Spanish speakers from her hometown in Mexico. So in that sense, we're discussing features of a native dialect, like we did with Hanley Lopez from the Dominican Republic. And the second is that there may be a tiny bit of intrusion of English somewhere or other in her Spanish. After all, she is a Spanish-English bilingual. So let's look at her Spanish from those two angles. Native Spanish dialect. Number 1, ch, like sh. This young woman pronounces ch like English sh. So she pronounces chirriante, chaqueta, hecha, escúchalas, agachó, noches, and buche like chirriante, chaqueta, hecha, escúchalas, agachó, noches, and buche. This is a very common feature of dialects in northern Mexico, and it can be heard in other Spanish dialects as far away as South America and even Spain. Number 2, velar fricative as a true velar fricative. She pronounced Spanish J in words like Jaime, traje, and hijo, with a bit more friction than English H. She didn't pronounce it as fricatively as I do, but a bit more than I think I expected. This was a nice surprise for me, because I like the sound of the velar fricative, and I don't like it when people pronounce it just like English H. I've heard from both natives who live in northern Mexico and students who've studied there that Mexican dialects in that region pronounce their velar fricative just like English H. That has not been my observation, though, and it's nice to have one more bit of evidence from one more northern dialect that pronounces it as a true velar fricative. Number 3, voiced approximants and fricatives very soft. She pronounced all the voiced approximants and fricatives very softly most of the time, particularly B and D. You can hear her pronounce cosa de todas, like cosa y todas, and movimiento, like movimiento. And there are too many other similar examples to mention. She pronounced most instances of these very softly. Of course, this is perfectly authentic for her dialect. Number 4, reduced S before trilled R. As is the case for most Mexican dialects, she did not reduce S in any position except preceding trilled R. So she consistently pronounced S in words like este, vestido, and bastón, but she reduced it in this position, pronouncing this word pair as marraras. Now for some things I think may be due to English influence. Number 1, weak double L. She pronounced double L so weakly that it was essentially silent in words like bolsillo, mejillas, brillo, and aquellas, that she pronounced more like bolsillo, mejillas, brillo, and aquellas. Although she did pronounce it a bit more noticeably in forma maravillosa, which she pronounced something like forma maravillosa. I have close personal friends from Sonora, Mexico, and I visit the region occasionally, and it's my observation that monolingual natives don't pronounce double L quite this weakly. My suspicion is that her pronunciation of double L is an example of her English exerting some influence on her Spanish. Number 2, E as short I. In one place she pronounced respiración like respiración, and in another she pronounced en su interior like en su interior. However, she pronounced the other instances of respiración and interior with Spanish E. It's my suspicion that she pronounced these two words this way because of intrusion of English. I think it's more than a coincidence that both of these words have close English cognates where the E sound is a short I. Number 3, glottal stop. She separated adjacent words with glottal stops in two places. She pronounced bolsita ante los ojos like bolsita ante los ojos, and sabes lo que es esto like sabes lo que es esto. Again, I'm not positive, but I believe this is probably a trait from her English finding its way into her Spanish. Number 4, written V as V. There were two places where she pronounced written V as the labiodental V. Con voz suave and loro verde, which she pronounced con voz suave and loro verde. As we discussed in my video on Spanish V, there are native speakers who variably pronounce written V as a labiodental fricative, V, when reading, because language arts teachers have kept alive the idea that there should be a distinction between B and V. So this pronunciation isn't very intrusive because monolingual natives do it sometimes too. In this case, though, I believe it was due to influence from English. Random stuff. There were a few other random things I noticed that didn't necessarily have anything to do with anything. Monolingual native speakers make boo-boos when they read and have variations in their pronunciation, and I don't think any of this merits an analysis. Alright, so what numerical rating would I give this young woman on the Spanish pronunciation evaluation scale? Well, this description is not generous enough for her. She does way more than pronounce basic Spanish sounds correctly, and she uses correct phonology more often than usually. So this young woman requires the expanded scale for rare prodigies, native bilinguals, and native speakers. I would say that this description fits her pretty well. Consistently uses correct Spanish phonetics and phonology. If I'm correct in any of my suspicions about places where English influenced her Spanish pronunciation in this recording, then it cannot quite be true that she always uses native phonetics and phonology. Almost always, and her divergences would be extremely minor, but not 100% native 100% of the time. Now, she does have an extremely accurate regional accent, so she meets this criterion. So she meets some of the criteria for a rating of 10, but not quite all of them 100% of the time. So for this recording, I would give this young woman a rating of 9+. And this rating coincides very well with my impression of how monolingual native Spanish speakers would perceive her. I think that she's better than this. She would be mistaken as a native speaker in many more circumstances than just short exchanges. And I don't think the subtle instances of English influence qualify as a foreign accent, not even a mild one. So she's extremely fluent in Spanish, and in most circumstances, most Spanish speakers would find her indistinguishable from a monolingual native from Sonora, Mexico. Alright, this has been my analysis of an extremely fluent, balanced native bilingual. I'm very happy to be able to add this speaker to our growing list of participants in this project, because it shows you just how truly native-like people sound who occupy the upper end of the scale. If you've enjoyed this video or learned something from it, please give it a like and share it with a friend or two. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content.